My name is Gerry Murphy and I'm going to read you some poems. Start off with called Poem in One Breath. Not that you would notice, but every time you pass up the corridor, Lenin's statue levitates slightly to get a better view of the remarkable ease with which you fill curved space. And we will continue with a poem called A Poem for Herr Speer with hitherto unpublished historical details. In Hitler's arsehole there was a small trapdoor, to be opened in the event, and only in the event, of a final breakthrough on the Eastern Front. Inside you would find a secret tunnel which would lead you out under Berlin into a heavily concealed, well-stocked cave with all the facilities necessary to encourage the establishment of a government in exile. What more could any fascist want? Vision at Knock, for Paul Durkin. A figure, perhaps John the Evangelist, and behind John an altar, and on the altar a lamb, and behind the lamb a cross, and behind the cross a wet gable wall, and behind the wall a poky interior, and behind this poky interior a dismal view of the countryside, and beyond this dismal view of the countryside, and a little to the right, the Cathedral of Minsk, and behind the Cathedral of Minsk, Stalin, laughing. A small fat boy walking backwards. I should have kept right on going, smiling inwardly perhaps, and said nothing until I was able to confide in a policeman. After all, it could be merely a child's reaction to the probability of imminent global annihilation, or to the fluctuating price of gold, or was it rumours of a coup in Greece which troubled his young socialist heart? Anyway, I couldn't resist inquiring as to why he chose such an unorthodox mode of conveyance with such grim determination. He told me to fuck off. Yet consider, if you will, the possibility that when the universe loses its tremendous momentum of expansion and begins to collapse back slowly on itself, time, sex, race, previous existence, Mensheviks, Goethe, tax evasion, syphilis, early Byzantium, Hitler, detergents, Cyprus, Mozart, the IRA, Stephen Hawking, the Boston Tea Party, Jupiter, sperm banks, papal infallibility, Dante, mobile colonic irrigation, Coca-Cola, women's soccer, John Quincy Adams will finally repair faster and faster in final reverse order. Part of a poem to celebrate your next birthday. Keeping one eye open for minor fluctuations in the property market, keeping the heart pent up for spring, I watch you swim. I calculate your trade value. I could, of course, ask you out into the rainforest, the Jovian ice fields, the fresh air, onto the lunar surface, the veldt, the seafloor. Is there anything in particular you desire? There's nothing here for you, at least, if it's all the same to you, nothing you could take home to mother. I am developing a fixed obsession for your navel, except perhaps a view of the river, and floating quietly thereupon, a small passion for your breasts, a few dead priests, though dare I say it, the hots, the very hots for your vulva, yes, and a cool, detached admiration for your legs. Not enough? Even if it is only a matter of days before the commencement of nuclear, hostilities, are you digging in on your Swiss bank account? And even if Castro is dead, Lenin, at least it's spring, the birds are sing. There is a sharp blue cold wind streaking in from the Atlantic, and if you search carefully along the edge of this poem, or if you will, along the edge of the Arctic Circle, you will find references to your exquisite face, the pert delight of your breasts, the lovely curves of your hips, the southern tip of South America, that sort of thing. Of course, if you are saving yourself from an associate professor and would rather not be identified too closely with this surrealist excess, lest you be discovered at some future date and brought up before a Senate subcommittee hearing on the suitability of your husband, now a professor, as ambassador to Papua New Guinea, just say so. I can take a hint. And we're now going to my latest collection, which is called The Humours of Nothingness. Shostakovich, after Peter Bukowski, who was an Australian poet. The nail bends not in submission, but rebellion. My life as a Stalinist. Capitalist lackey, I shouted my father across the dinner table during a discussion on the feasibility of the second 5-year plan, the return of Fianna Fáil to government, or my dismal school report, probably all three. The conversation stutters to a halt, and for a moment there is silence. My father's response is laughter, knowing full well that I'm only half aware of the meaning of my misdirected insult. You're a great one for the slogans, Jerry boy. Try to read a little more of the literature underpinning them. In fact, go back to your beloved Stalin and study his voluminous essays on this very subject and his matters of dealing with backsliders, saboteurs and lackeys. And then get back to me and call me whatever you like. Between ourselves. In August 1940, Stalin sent Mercader to Mexico City to open tentative negotiations with Trotsky, to break the ice, so to speak. Miss Molotov. Because she had walked through a fuel spill Miss Molotov. Because she had walked through a fuel spill without noticing, she arrived at the Peace and Reconciliation meeting smelling like a petrol ball. And this one is from memory. It's called A Small Matter of Transmigration. It's December. There's a butterfly in the bathroom. It's Lenin. We shall carry on. Forgive the flicking of pages. News from the home front. Mr. Burke is beginning to have his doubts about democracy. Nothing to worry us in this. After all, Mr. Burke, in his present position, poses no significant threat to democracy. And even if he were to go out into the streets right now, canvassing support for his new revolutionary post-democratic People's People Party at Margaret's Place, he'd probably attract little more than the same old gang of walking wounded from the Long Valley and possibly the motorised SS with six-packs. Me, I just dream of sleeping with you, sleeping without you. Headgear of the tribe. Brits on the pavement, ice in the wind, my mother is knitting my first balaclava. And here's Bedtime Story, which is based in the Cambodian time of the Khmer Rouge. Now, children, let's all get snug under the duvet and listen to Comrade Tech of the Khmer Rouge. He will demonstrate with the aid of a live monkey, which you may play with later, how he used to kill those nasty Lon Nol soldiers. Watch carefully as he takes a very sharp knife and slits open the monkey's belly, and pressing along the sides of the cut with the palms of his hands, makes the liver pop out in one piece. With a man, he says, it would never be quite as easy. More often than not, in his experience, he would have to use his foot to exert the proper pressure on the wound, otherwise the liver hardly ever came out completely. Are you asleep? Epitaph for an old IRA man. That gaspipe beluga, my grandfather, has blown his last dart into the stratosphere. We found him grinning under the wheels of the royal carriage this morning, his unexploded Corrigan bomb pressed to a jelly. Memories of Old Moscow. For Paul Durkin. Spring it is, daffodils and leaping squirrels in leafing trees, the Politburo winding up to speak of Lenin. This is called Bang. Finally sold out, exhausted but happy, the balloon seller leans for a breather on the roof of the car bomb. What? I'm up close to the radio, listening late and at low volume to the World Service when the house shudders. My brother is tumbling purposefully down the stairs, 18 stones of spluttering indignation in a tiny red underpants, bearing a message from his wife. Would you ever go to bed? You're keeping the canary awake. Breakthrough is a poem about soccer. Mexico 1970, World Cup quarter-final. England 2-up against West Germany and cruising. My brother quietly gloating My father and I plunged into glum, staring silence. I go out into the kitchen to make tea. West Germany claw one back. Too little, too late, my brother declares. I go back into the kitchen. West Germany equalise. My father and I are led out, blinking into the daylight. In extra time, Muller, their bomber, scores the winner. I had never hugged my father. I haven't hugged him since.